it comes back to a decision on what are you going to do with the molecules that are going to be coming out of the ground. If it's natural gas, you have to figure out natural gas, you must understand, has no, does not, is not reflected as reserves on the balance sheet until you have a plan of development. Oil is different because oil is even more fungible. Natural gas, because some of the fields are very far out, one has to consider whether or not you bring that gas to shore, if it's economical to do that or not. But if you can bring natural gas to shore, as is happening, as is intended by one of the earlier projects, the Kudu project, it then allows you to do power generation and other activities. But see, gas is both a fuel as well as a feedstock. Fuel is where you burn it to do some things, like drive a turbine to get electricity. But it's also a feedstock where you could now build basic petrochemicals, methanol, ammonia, which would lead to urea and fertilizer and such, which also have the further downstream uses that again can benefit and build secondary and tertiary industries in and of themselves, and all of which require electricity, which then allows you to have a synergy of having electricity that works 24/7 to service those activities, but can also have excess electricity that goes into a national grid, so that you have now 24/7 electricity in your country, and it's not paid, the electrons are not paid for by the housewife, but they're also paid heavily by the base load use for industrial activity, which of course then also multiplies itself into jobs, okay, going all the way on down, which will again require services to keep those activities going. And you can see the multiplier effect. Local content is not about jobs. It is about providing maximum value for your country. That's natural gas. Oil, you can I think most of the activities for particular deepwater oil tend to be to export the oil. Unless you decide you want to build an oil refinery to add value to the molecules in your country, I think those are the kinds of decisions you have to take. And again, you could use the same analogy. If you choose to find a way to bring some of it to shore, to do an oil refinery by itself, it's going to be, of course, one has to consider the environmental implications of all of this, many of which could be mitigated. And certainly Namibia has no shortage of land that is away from, and water, that is away from human activities. So yeah, you have to consider all of those. Now, if you find a way now to bring, for instance, either natural gas and no oil to shore with some of these other activities and the concomitant electricity, that again, it's easier to move electrons than it is to move molecules. So which means that you can now be, I think one of the original intents of the gas from Kudu was to provide, to help to add electricity into the grid here in South Africa and maybe some of the other SADC regional countries. That's one way. But certainly also the services that are going to be provided are going to need a lot of people ultimately. And certainly you have a certain level of freedom of movement among SADC countries, which again in itself may provide other means of supporting communities in the SADC region. I think if we start to dream dreams, as it were, not just dreams for dreaming's sake, esoteric dreams, you can start to then make linkages of all different kinds and start to see how you could add that whole multiplier effect throughout. Well, first of all, I've been to your conference now. I think it's either 2 or 3 of them I've been to. And I've worked very closely with Selma, who has been organizing these conferences over the many, many years. I really admire her. I mean, she is a true she's a true daughter of the soil, I have to say. And she's very brave to have been pioneering in this area, and I think she should be supported as much as is possible to move forward, to continue this activity. I think the topics that we've just mentioned, I think those are the ones that really should be we're looking at. We should also look, and I have to say we, because like I say, I've been involved, should be looking at how do we empower locals to get into the activities that will have spin-off values. A key element is how do we finance small and medium enterprises. Certainly, I also used to be a member of parliament in my country, and one of the things that I learned very early on is if you empower the women, the mothers in the country, the children get fed and clothed. And therefore, it's not just about gender parity in the STEM sector, the sciences and engineering and all of that. How do we empower overall the citizens of this society? And one of the things that bugged me when I was doing my thing in Trinidad and Tobago was I didn't get to the point of being able to set up those financing mechanisms to empower local enterprises to be more involved. Now, that's not to say that a lot of the local enterprises in my country, even then and now, are not involved. But I think there's room for more. And certainly the volume of activity that's going to happen in Namibia over the next several decades will require all hands on deck. But also that will allow this economic activity could then fuel the policies of your government to allow a diversification of your economy so that you're not exposed only to the oil and gas, the vagaries of the oil and gas market, because you are a price taker, not a price maker. But if you are able to diversify the economy using that wealth that is going to come in, then you stand a chance of having a much more balanced society. And again, to get that going, people may need a leg up. And to go after what I think your forefathers and mine used to call achieving the commanding heights of your economy. Yeah. So that's what you guys we need to talk about in the next conference. I think those kinds of discussions really need to come forward.